Hello and welcome to this Price a Job tutorial. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the Resin Driveways module in Price a Job. To access the Resin Driveways module, navigate to the Landscaping category here in the module toolbar and select Driveways. This opens the submenu with a variety of styles of driveways available, including resin. We'll select that and then click Create. And this opens the Resin Driveways module. It should be noted that the Resin Driveways module is almost identical to the Resin Pathways module. We can access that by going to the Landscaping category in the module toolbar, selecting Pathways, and then selecting Resin, and create the module. And here we can compare the Resin Pathway module to the Resin Driveway module, and we can see that they are basically identical. To start with, we'll set the area of our driveway at 50 square meters. If we're unsure of the area of our driveway, we can use the area calculator to help us calculate the area. Here we can use the add spaces function to add areas of our driveway and build the shape of our driveway as it exists. In this case, we know the area of our driveway is 50 square meters, so we'll just use this as a simple measurement. For the excavation depth, Price a Job has automatically calculated the required depth, in this case 268 millimeters. For the resin base, we have options to specify either a concrete base or asphalt. If we select asphalt, we're also provided options to select a base type, either concrete or hardcore. And notice as we make our changes that our sketch updates to illustrate our selections. Here is the concrete base. And here is the resin base in concrete. For this example, we'll stick with the traditional concrete base. For the excavation, we can specify whether this is to be done by hand or by machine, and if we select a machine, Price a Job automatically recommends a machine for the job. In this case, a 1.5 ton excavator should do the job nicely, and we can click the cog settings option to adjust the productivity settings in cubic meters per hour, the delivery and collection costs in pounds, or the fuel consumption in liters per hour. Then for the disposal of soil, we can specify whether this is to be done by machine or by hand, and Price a Job has automatically calculated the volume of soil to be disposed of, and this is based on the 13.4 cubic meters plus an expansion factor. And we can click the cog settings here to adjust the expansion rate of the soil once it's been dug up. So 22% is a reasonable rate. So we'll close this, and based on that, the expanded soil will equal about 16.3 cubic meters of volume. For this amount of soil to be disposed of, Price a Job estimates that we'll require about 2.7 8-yard skips. If we choose to increase the size of skip, we can do so here by selecting from the drop-down list, and if we have any other disposal jobs, those modules will also be combined with this one to help us fill the remaining 30% of the third skip. If we have no other disposal jobs, we can simply round this up to the next whole number. If you won't be disposing of the soil, you can deselect this, and then perhaps add a note to your description saying, disposal of soil on site. And you'll notice that as we deselect these stages, that the stage is also removed from the estimate pane here. Here's the disposal of soil, and when we deselect it, it is removed completely. Next, we'll take a look at the Geotextile membrane. Here we can select from the drop-down list the type of membrane we wish to use. Then we can set the specifications for the subbase. A standard thickness of 150 millimeters is recommended. However, we can adjust this if necessary. We also have options to either use crushed concrete for the subbase or MOT Type 1. We can select the cog settings here to adjust the ratio in kilograms per cubic meter. And as above, as we make our changes to the selections of the subbase, we can see our illustration updated in the sketch pane. Here is the concrete, and here is the MOT type. Next, we'll take a look at the concrete slab. The thickness of this is recommended at 100 millimeters, and we can adjust this if necessary. And here we have options to use either a ready mix, or mix on site, or use a concrete pump. Then we can also set the concrete mixture to a ratio of 1:3, 1:4, 1:6, or a custom mix. And here we can input our cement ratio in kilograms per cubic meter, and our ballast ratio in kilograms per cubic meter. We'll leave our mix at 1:4, or if we use a ready mix, we can specify either C15, C20, C25, C30, C35, C40, or C45. If we select a concrete pump, we have the same concrete mixes to choose from, and we can also select the cog settings button here to adjust the cubic meters per day, the minimum concrete load, and the part load charge. We'll just stay with mix on site with a mix ratio of 1:4. Next, we'll take a look at the reinforcement mesh. Here we have options to use either one layer or two, and we can specify whether this is A142, 193, 252, 393, or a custom measure. If we're selecting custom, we can choose from the drop-down box and select the type of mesh that we wish to use. In this case, we'll stick with A252. Then we can click the cog settings button to adjust the percentage of overlap, if any. Then we can also specify our spaces, whether we're using single spaces or continuous. And our spacing is automatically set at 600 millimeters, and we can adjust this if necessary. Now we'll take a look at the actual resin. We have options to use either bound or bonded. Bound is stone mixed in resin, and these are usually small pebbles up to about 20 millimeters. Bonded is resin on concrete with stones spread out on top, and these can be much larger. Here we can set the thickness of our resin and specify the mix design, either 7.5 kilos or 6.5. If we click on the cog settings, we can see the estimated coverages based on manufacturer's recommendations. We can change these if necessary. Here we have the coverage for small aggregate and large aggregate, resin, and sand. If we're happy with these settings, we can just close this window. Next, we can click on the select box, and this opens the price of job library where we can add extra resin, resin aggregates, or resin accessories. Once we're done making all of our selections, we can go to the Reports tab and view our quote. We have enormous control over how much information we show on the quote. Here is an advanced quote with all subtotals showing. If we wish, we can reduce the breakdown of costs to remove this subtotal of materials, labor, plant and tool, and other costs by deselecting this here. And if we wish to remove the subtotals for the modules, we can remove these module subtotals and only show the grand total price by selecting this subtotal icon here. And now we just have the grand total at the bottom. Under the advanced settings, we can hide the descriptions, hide materials and labor, plant and tool and other costs. We can conceal the prices for a table of quantities or conceal the quantity of units. We can also change the title of our quote from an estimate to a quote or a proposal. And then we can either print this quote, export it as a PDF, export it as a Word document, or email it from directly within Price-A-Job. And that's how to use the Resin Driveways module. Thank you for using Price-A-Job.